All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to quickly get, let's see. All right. Looks like it's already recording, so we're good to go. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Pretty good turnout here, so that's great to see. Of course, we're here to discuss the Science and Technology Business Startup Grant that is out of our office, the Office of Strategy, Science, and Technology. My name is Michael Prosnitz. I'm the program coordinator for that office, and I'm also joined by my director, Nora Sackett. Game plan for today is I'll do a quick presentation, probably about 10 minutes on important information on the grant. And then we'll do the rest of the meeting for questions. So we left a lot of time for questions in case there's a lot of questions to be asked. Some of the information people want some clarification on usually. So, all right, looks like we got a good amount of people in here. So I'll just go ahead and get started. Just real quick, can everybody hear me? Good. All right, awesome. Thank you.
I can hear you.
Good to go then. So let's get, oops, wrong side. There we go. All right, so we'll just get right into it. The goal of this grant is to assist early stage technology companies in the commercialization of their technology and help them continue to do business in the state of New Mexico, as well as grow their business in New Mexico. The funds are to be used for business development purposes and commercialization purposes, and we'll get into more details on that later. And lastly, the focus areas, the areas that our office, the 5 sectors that our office focuses on out of the 9 sectors identified by the EDD and the governor's office are aerospace, biosciences, advanced computing, intelligent manufacturing, and sustainable and green energy. So let's talk first about eligibility as far as the company goes. So first, you have to be headquartered in New Mexico. You have to be a for-profit science or technology company. And you have to be in good standing with the state of New Mexico, as well as being in one of those 5 focus areas that I just mentioned. The award itself ranges from $25,000 to $50,000. This is an increase from what we previously had of up to $25,000 in previous years. So as far as if you are creating a budget for this grant, you can list a number anywhere between $25,000 to $50,000. And
Michael,
just for reference,
can I add one thing on that note?
Yes, please.
I would just, when we're looking at the applications, as Michael said, this is an increase in how much funding we're providing for the range of awards, which we're very excited to be able to offer. But that, that doesn't guarantee that awards will be given at the full amount, right? So that is a range that we're going to be looking at as we evaluate applications. So I would just recommend as you submit your proposed budget for your application, if you submit a budget that is $50,000 for one thing, and we're looking to award at the lower end of the range, that's a little bit more difficult to parse out how we would make that award to you, if that makes sense. So, think about when you're proposing your award, how the funding would be deployed at X level of funding and how the funding would be deployed at Y level of funding. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Nora. All right. So then let's get into the uses, what you can and can't use the funding for. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the funding is to be used for business development purposes. So that includes things like intellectual property assessment, patent filing, outside lab testing and validation, regulatory assessment and certifications, meeting with customers, partners, and investors, attending trade shows, which can only be up to 10% of the total awarded funds, or market research and data acquisition. This isn't an all-inclusive list. There are other things you could use it on, like website design and things like that. These are just kind of the big ones we tend to see most often. And then eligible funding use, 2 big ones are going to be payroll and research and development. So you cannot use the funds to pay the salary of someone who is employed by your company. However, as I did just mention, the research, for example, if you were to hire someone to do research, market research and data acquisition through something like a contract, you would be able to use the funds for a contract, just not for a payroll expense. And then research and development, as well as materials and supplies over $100. This is going to include laboratory or business equipment. And then lastly, things like alcohol and food. We'll talk
I'll
a little
just
bit.
note, I see folks leaving questions in the chat. Go ahead, keep putting them in there, and we'll come to those when Michael's done with his presentation.
Yeah, thanks for that. I got the chat up now so I can see those. But yeah, we'll go through this first, and then we'll get to all those questions. At the end of the presentation, you should be able to unmute yourself as well if you would rather ask your question not in the chat. All right. So yeah, application. There's 5 main sections for the application. It is not that intensive of an application, especially if you've applied for something like an SBIR or STTR in the past. This application is much simpler than that. So the 5 sections are going to be company eligibility, company information, budget, executive summary, and a pitch deck. And within those 5, the documents that you'll need to include, as in the documents that you'll need to upload into the application, are your budget, your pitch deck, and a screenshot or printout of your New Mexico business tax ID status verification. And I just want to take a second to talk about that last one. What a lot of people do for this is they include a letter of good standing from the New Mexico Tax and Revenue, which is perfectly fine to do, and that works. The reason we do not require that letter, though, is because sometimes it can take 2 to 3 weeks to get that letter. And if you want to get it in a timely fashion, you have to pay to expedite it. So that's why we only require a screenshot or printout of your tax ID status verification. And there's instructions on where to go to do that on the grant manual under eligible applicants. So if you're wondering how to do that, you can find the directions there. And then quickly, just to discuss the budget and the pitch deck. We don't require anything too fancy for the budget at this stage of the application. There is a budget template attached in the application itself, and we're just looking for kind of high-level overview things. So if we go to the previous slide, you could list something like patent filing expenses and then just the number amount. Just something simple like that works for the budget at this stage of the application. If you were to get awarded funding, we'll ask for something maybe a little more in depth at that point, but for now, just keeping it simple is good. And then we do require a pitch deck. It's a 8-slide pitch deck. If you already have a pitch deck, you can probably just pull things from there. And there's directions on what we're looking for each of those slides. And then the last main section is the executive summary. This is going to be where a lot of the main information is asked. If anyone is familiar with the lean business model, it's kind of just a lot of information from there. Things like what the problem is, your solution, competitive landscape, revenue model, things like that. Now let's jump into the evaluation process. So once you've submitted your application, our office does a first kind of parse through of making sure the application is eligible. And if it is, then we send it over to our TRC, the Technology Research Collaborative Board. And they're going to evaluate your application based on the following criteria below. That being the proposal, so your problem statement, unique value proposition, et cetera, things like that. The technology and market readiness level and marketability, the potential risks and competitive landscape, the financial forecast, your proposed use of funds, and your capacity and team expertise, as well as your company's potential to develop the tax base in New Mexico and potentially create jobs, essentially creating economic growth in the state. And then a little bit about if you were awarded funding. I won't go into this too much for this webinar, but just some key things. The award is paid out through a cost reimbursement basis in the form of 4 tranches. So you will get one of those 4 tranches up front, and then you will receive another of those 4 tranches, depending on your timeline, about, a quarter through that timeline. And then we also require you to submit a signed W-9 for the state of New Mexico. This is so that we can get you set up as a vendor for the state of New Mexico and get the funds to you. A signed grant agreement, a final report, as well as a kind of halfway through report for the funding. And then we may reach out after the funding period for kind of a follow-up to see if you've received any follow-on funding after this award. A little bit just on past awardees to give you an idea of people we funded in the past. In the last fiscal period, one of the companies was Mercury Bio, which is a biomolecular drug delivery company. Unify Technologies the year before, a high-performance computing solutions company. Allerpops, which is a allergy medicine in the form of a lollipop. Team Neuro, that's identified a marker for early onset Alzheimer's. And then Pajarito Power, which developed a fuel cell catalyst for the hydrogen sector. So a lot of range here, and we usually fund companies throughout all those 5 sectors that I mentioned before. All right, and then let's quickly go over a bit of the timeline here. So the grant opened up a week ago on September 3rd, and it'll be open for about, well, exactly 2 weeks today, and close on September 24th at 5 p.m. I believe on the application itself, it actually says 6 p.m. I didn't know that when you set the time for 5 p.m. it was Pacific time, so I think it says 6 p.m. on there. But please don't get it in, last minute, just in case anything goes wrong. Please try to get it in a couple days before if possible, or at least 1 day before. Again, as I mentioned, eligible applications will be reviewed by our Technology Research Collaborative Board. And correct me if I'm wrong, Nora, I don't believe we've done this in the recent past, but applicants may be asked to give a brief presentation and interview with our TRC.
Yeah, it's something, we just want to put it out there. We reserve the right to ask it of you, but we'll just see how the process goes.
Great, thanks. And then as far as once the application closes, it'll take us about a month to go through the back end process on our end, and we expect the award decisions to be made around late October. And then as far as if you are awarded, all projects must be completed within our fiscal year 25, which is June 30th, 2025. So just to give you an idea, right, if we give out the notice of awards in the end of October, let's say it takes a month for you to get your actual first tranche of funding, so the end of November, that gives you about 7 months until June 30th to spend the money that you've asked or received from the grant. And then, let's see. All right, and then that's it. Open to questions now, and my email and phone number are there as well. If you have any questions for after, or if anything comes up, you can always feel free to reach out, especially during the application process if there's any questions on the portal itself. All right, so let's see. I think I'll quickly
So maybe let's run through the questions in the chat first.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, Ben, is there a $200,000 reward pool, or is it a smaller amount? Nora, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure if we share that information.
Yeah, it's the funding amount. It's a little complicated where it all comes from. So I would say we had 4 awards of 25K last year. We do anticipate likely making a couple more than that this year. And I think somebody asked that too. I know that's a bit vague, but we have like a funding pot for several awards that we administer. And so it's not, it's kind of a variable situation that we have to take as it comes. So, the award range isn't going to change this year, 25 to 50K. That's what we'll be looking at. I'm hopeful to make a couple more awardees than we did last year. That was part of our intention. I know that's a small amount of awardees, and that is, we're always pushing for more funds and be able to make more awardees, I promise you. So we have had some success, right? We've increased the amount, so we're just going to keep pushing on it. So we hope to continue that.
Thank you, Nora. All right, let's see what is next. For this grant application process, would you all accept cybersecurity, space, and AI as a focus area? Yes, we would. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one focus area that you're set in. It can kind of go broad within those if it has kind of multiple focus areas. So yeah, that's fine. Does it cover CPA and legal fees? Yes, it does. Again, with CPA kind of accounting fees, a little bit tricky there. If you have an accountant through contract that you're paying to do that for you, then likely yes. But if they are on payroll for your company, then no. So little bit of a gray.
I think with that, it's just important in your application that you explain and make the case for why this is supporting the growth and development of your business.
Yeah. All right. Can I use the funds paying contractors to write software? Would it be software specifically for your product or technology? I think that was
Yeah, I
Roger.
think for that, my assumption would be likely no. Okay, yeah, Roger said yes. So no, because that would fall under R&D, and R&D is not an eligible expense for these funds. It's for business development expenses.
Right. And then sorry, there's a lot of them come in the chat now, so I'll try to work through these a little bit quick. Can I use the funds paying contract? Oh, no, wrong. Can we have more than one focus area from Vignesh? Yes, you can. As long, make sure you explain where you kind of are and are a little in depth on how you kind of go into the different focus areas. But that is perfectly fine. David says it's just a template, not fillable. I think you're referring to the budget template on the grant application. And yes, you don't have to use that. And I guess, well, you can't use that one because it's not fillable, but any kind of just basic budget template, 2 columns, what you're going to use it for and how much you're going to use it, anything like that will work. If you want to go in depth a little bit more, you're welcome to, but it's not required. Let's see, Mark, got a long one here. Okay. Let me.
So I read Mark's as you were giving your presentation, Michael. I think Mark, we should have a follow-up conversation. So why don't you reach out to Michael and we can set up, this seems like a bit of a longer conversation to have than in the context of this webinar. So I would recommend reaching out to Michael and we can set up a follow-up conversation to delve into that.
Great. Thank you. And yeah, I think, my email is still being shared, so feel free to send me something right after this. I don't see anybody waiting in the chat. Did we get that person?
Yeah, I looked at, there was nobody waiting to be admitted.
Okay, that might be little error. The webinar should be posted on our website, and here I can quickly bring up so the link that I just posted in the chat. The webinar will be uploaded there at the bottom, hopefully within the next day or two. I'll get working on that right after this. So if somebody was not able to make the presentation, the webinar, then they can go there and find everything. Elijah says, I believe tax and revenue may have changed things. They don't give tax ID status verification, but they do give a same-day letter of good standing upon login. Oh, well, that's good to know.
And that's what we're looking for, so that's perfect. And those are the instructions. They're in the manual and the application. It links to that.
Okay. Then agriculture and forestry industry, does that qualify or is that out of scope for this grant? That's likely going to be out of scope for this grant, but it depends what your technology is in the application, possibly.
Agreed. I would say, does it have a green sustainable energy application? Then potentially. And you can feel free to follow up with Michael to delve into those details if you're unsure.
Yeah. For example, if it has something to do with carbon sequestration or something, then, that would kind of fall under the green and resilient energy. So in that case, then yes, but many other things probably no. So go ahead and shoot me an email and we can dive into that a little more. So for eligibility, headquartered in New Mexico does not mean that you need to, a lot of companies we work with are Delaware corps, but are headquartered in New Mexico. And mostly a good way we do that is 50% of the company has to be working out of the state.
Sorry, Michael, I don't mean to jump on. It needs to be at least 60%.
Oh, 60%. Apologies.
Yes.
Thank you. 60% of the company needs to be working with or employed in the state. All right. And then, do you have to reincorporate in New Mexico if you incorporate in a different state? So yes, for this grant, you can't operate as a foreign entity in New Mexico. You actually need to be, and correct me if I'm wrong.
No, sorry. That's what we were just going over.
Oh, that's what we were just saying.
You
Okay,
can be
okay,
incorporated elsewhere, but registered to operate in New Mexico, and your headquarters is in New Mexico, and at least 60% of staff is in New Mexico.
Yeah. All right, and that I believe answers the second part as well. Kind of went over how many awards we expect. We can't give an exact amount, but we expect more than in previous years. So good news there. It's great that it includes website design, but can that be expanded to include more marketing activities, i.e. social media, emails? Likely, yes. If it's marketing for your company and can help you get maybe leads on sales or something like that. If you're at that point in your if you're at that stage, then yes, and just make your claim or argument for why it would fall under marketing in that case in your grant application. I know this grant differs from the others, but can you tell us when the New Mexico's SBIR grant will open up? Does that grant match? Yes, so that grant should be opening up around November of this year. And that provides matching funding for either an active phase 1 SBIR or an active phase 2. For phase 1, that is up to $25,000, and for phase 2, that is up to $100,000. If you sign up for our newsletter and if you email me, I can get that over to you. All of our grant announcements go out through an email blast, usually a week before and then when they release. One is a new startup and has applied for a business license in New Mexico, but has not received it by the deadline. Can they still apply? I'm going to pass that one over to Nora.
Yeah, Chuck, I don't know if we have encountered that before, to be perfectly honest. So let's follow up. Let's follow up to chat. I think I want to say yes, because we want to be, encouraging of folks doing and starting their business in New Mexico. But let me just double check that. So if you don't mind shooting me an email to follow up.
Great.
Will do.
Thanks, Chuck.
Can IP costs be out of New Mexico? Yeah, I believe so. You do not need to work with a IP law firm from New Mexico as long as your company is headquartered in New Mexico. That should be fine. If we are trying to become AS9100 certified for our QMS system, do funds spent on that certification process count towards acceptable usage? Yes, one of the, here, maybe I'll leave. There you go. Yeah, one of the categories here is regulatory assessment and certifications, so that should be fine. That counts as a business development expense. Nor, do you know if it's possible to get a tax CRS ID quickly?
So that's not run through our department, but we can work with TRD to get you an answer to that. So Vinayak, if you can send Michael an email following up on that, and Michael, I'll link up with you to follow up with our tax and rev department to get you an answer to that.
Great. And then we have another question from Mark. Can you explain why they...
Mark, let's definitely follow up offline. Michael and I don't make all the decisions from on high, right? We're just here trying to get funds out to New Mexico businesses, but we totally understand that feeling, and we do always look for ways to expand the kinds of funds that we're getting out to folks. So definitely would love to have a follow-up conversation on that.
Great. And then Michael asks, can we make multiple applications for different focus areas? In this case, no. You would just make one application for explaining, what areas your company is in. So you can't do multiple applications for the same company. Does renewable energy include renewable saline water desalination? I would believe so, yes. Yeah. Would the purchase of software be considered materials and supplies?
It would depend on what it's for, right? Yeah. So if it's like a software that's powering your technology, right? That's a part of your tech, that would not be allowed. Is it a business development expense, like for inventory or something? I'm just saying that off the top of my head. That could be allowable. So we're here to answer questions about, these details as the grant remains open. So feel free to follow up. But I would say just remember the focus is business development, so not R&D. So if it's a software that is part of your tech stack, no, that wouldn't be allowed.
Great. Thanks, Nora. So I believe this is a follow-up from earlier about the agriculture question. So these would be network and agricultural forestry deployments.
Yeah, we can, I think, let's just keep that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, just shoot me an email and we'll follow up with that. So if we requested 50,000, is there an option to receive less, or does our application just get declined if there isn't an award this large in this round? No, your application would not get declined. We may just follow back with you saying we would like to fund, but we can only fund in X amount. Can you send us a new budget on how you would spend the lower amount? And then kind of work from there.
Yeah, so, just to echo what Michael said, we've done that before where we awarded somebody, but just less funding than their maximum. So definitely possible.
Yeah. So feel free to put what you feel you need. And if it is a larger amount, that's fine. Just understand you may not get funded in that larger amount if you are awarded. So just be, as Nora said, kind of have a plan B in your head of if we come back with a counter that you kind of have a plan. If you apply for this grant, can we also apply for the SBIR matching grant? Yes, you can. If you apply for one of our grants, you are eligible to apply for any of our grants. For this grant in particular, you cannot apply in consecutive years. So if you are awarded, or if you were awarded, for example, last year, and you applied again, you wouldn't be eligible until a whole round of funding goes through, and then you could apply again. So there's a kind of 1-year grace period. Will the award be provided in advance or upfront tranches, or will we always need to reimburse after the work is done? So we say cost reimbursement. It doesn't necessarily always work like that. As I mentioned before, when you do get funded, you will receive a quarter of the amount up front. And then after that, we'll work through, if you're ready for your second invoice, we'll work through the receipts and all the documentation that needs to go on for how those funds were used. And then we'll award the second amount, and then so forth and so forth. So it is kind of cost
typically in chunks of 25% for each tranche.
Mm-hmm. So you will get some upfront to kind of get it started. We understand companies don't always have the amount needed for that reimbursement. So If a tech service is cannabis as a client but has other sector applications as well, can they apply? Going to depend what those sectors are again. So if you want to, or that was coming from Sandy. So if you have something in mind, Sandy, feel free to email me, and we can discuss further. But it's going to depend what the sectors are.
Yeah, and it would need to be like a really targeted vision if that's a sort of new application that they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm. And then question 26 and 28 have similar descriptions. Is this correct? Don't remember what those ones are
that
off the
afterward.
top of my head. Yeah, but does current monthly revenue include DOE SBIR grants? I would say so. Just, maybe explain where that amount is coming from in the question. Nora, are we sharing how many submissions we receive on grants?
Yeah, sure. So last year, oh goodness, it was a lot, guys. I want to say the total number of submissions was over 50. I want to say it was closer to 70, but I don't remember the precise number, but it was definitely over 50. And like, for us, it's just a sign that we are correct in continuing pushing for more funding and being able to make more awards, right? So we would wish we could make more. We are dealing with the funds that we have, and we're doing our best. But if we had it our way, we would definitely be able to give more out to you guys 100%. Preference for larger headcounts, or do solo founders stand a chance? Solo founders totally stand a chance. That the headcount amount, is not a major swaying factor. It's something we look at. Obviously, we like to see when jobs are created, but if there is a potential for jobs to be created, I mean, we're still going to evaluate through all the same metrics, no matter how many people work there. So definitely encourage solo founders to still apply and make the case and tell us your vision.
Great. All right. Almost getting through all of them. So we need to add AI to your technology. Can the fund be used to fund that research? Likely no. Adding that AI to your technology would fall under research and development. So the answer, yeah, probably no for that one. Got it there. In regards to software and tech, can we use the funding for CRM, Microsoft Suite, cybersecurity software? Not familiar with CRM, but I believe for cybersecurity software and Microsoft Suite, that should be fine. I believe that would be a business development expense. I'll double check that with Nora real quick, but
Yeah, I would, it just, you just need to make the case. If our focus is business development, so tell us how this is going to allow you to expand and grow your business and improve your business and continue to grow and do business in New Mexico.
and can expenses prior to the grant be covered? Usually no, unless that expense kind of carries over to when your funding period would start. We're kind of
Yeah, I
looking
would say the
for,
answer to that is no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think what Michael's trying to say is, if there's like something that is also was started previously, but is continually, more charges are coming in, for example, like as the grant is active, you would need to explain that. We can look at that, but this isn't intended to backfill. This is intended to fund new business development growth.
And Thomas asks, how detailed is the final report? Can it be an accumulation of the milestone updates with a short summary of outcomes? Yeah, you kind of nailed it right on the head. That's kind of what we asked for. It's about a page or two of kind of some, these are the milestones you had. Tell us how you met them, how much money you spent on them. Pretty straightforward there. There are, like I said before, we get receipts and everything like that for purchases and how you've spent the funding. So the final report is just kind of a milestone coverage. Okay, question 26. So
I think Alicia, I totally see your point. Michael will have to go in and look at the application and stuff to follow up on that. But thank you for flagging that, and we'll take a look at that after the webinar and follow up. Sandy, as always, is being awesome. and making connections for people. So if you guys don't know Sandy, make sure to connect with her for any grants, other things she knows about.
All right, it looks like we've covered everything that was in the chat. So if anybody has questions that they want to ask via voice, via Teams, then all right, we got one. Vignesh.
Hey, Michael, thanks for arranging this meeting. I just wanted to clarify, I think you had mentioned before, but what would constitute meeting with customers, partners, and investments as a expense? Like what are the specific categories? Because most of our expenses goes into the travel bucket. So especially when going to meet customers. So is that an eligible expense I can put forward?
Yeah. So most of what we see for that meeting with customers, partners, and investors section is exactly what you said. It's, a flight or an Uber or something like that. Again, just make sure, if it's an Uber or a meal or something like that, you get good receipts for all that, and make sure everything is documented well, because those can be a lot of small amounts that add up to a big amount. So as long as everything is documented well, then that's fine.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Michael is saying, so, like Michael said, the answer is yes, within reason, right? So you just need to be a very solid argument for the customers that you're meeting with, and what that sort of new introduction is going to result in, because it's your taxpayer dollars that we're trying to be good stewards with, right?
Right. That's yeah. Just a follow-up question to that.
Go for it.
Yeah. So right now, at least while submitting our application, we do not have a clear idea how much the expense would be. So would an estimate suffice for now? And then later, as we go towards once the application is approved, then we submit maybe a more concrete number.
Yeah. So once if you are awarded and we get to that stage, part of the grant agreement is to submit an updated budget, timeline, some more documentation. So you can, if something has come about in that time, you can make adjustments to it. Just again, make sure, if you'll notice something Nora said a lot, it's a lot of, make your argument for it and make sure everything is explained very well on how that is going to be a business expense or anything like that. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael, Nora.
Thank you. And Michael Katowski, I see you asked about mileage. I don't think, I think that's the first time that's ever come up, at least in my purview. So that's a great question. I'm going to have to follow up on that. If you will. Okay, yeah, if you'll just let me follow up on that one and get back to you with an answer to check on that. And then there was another one about travel, lodging, and food stipend. So Michael has up right now what's ineligible, right? So food is listed right there is an ineligible expense. Lodging for a customer meeting can be eligible, again, within reason, right? Within reason for a customer meeting or trade show or etc. Michael, do you want to pull up the timeline one again? Awesome.
Just go into that. There we go. So yeah, we expect to make an announcement in late October. So about a month probably after the applications close, we'll have announcements on funding, or awardees, I should say. And I think I don't see anything else in the chat. Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask verbally?
Awesome.
All right. So I will still be here until 2 o'clock just in case, but if you guys don't have any more questions or concerns, then that'll be it for this webinar. Again, feel free to reach out to me through email with any questions about the application process or any more eligibility questions, things like that. We're looking to help as much as we can during this period until the grant closes on the 24th for the application. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Michael and
everybody.
Nora.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for arranging this.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
everyone.
much. Have a great day. You guys are great.
Michael, can you run me through how to print out a hard copy of the application?
So you mean the application itself?
Yes.
Let's see.
That might require a follow-up when he's off the
Yeah.
webinar, Wesley.
Yeah,
Since this
why
is
don't
on
you
with
send me an
everyone.
email? That way I have your email and then I'll follow up with you on that.
Okay, can you put your email up again?
Yes. Oop. That showing, right?
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Michael.
Go for it.
So I am a cybersecurity analyst. I just started the business. I think September of 2023. And one of the things that I find valuable is having a server to test a lot of the malware for the government entities and the municipalities and so on and so forth, corporations and commercial entities that I'm trying to target. Would that be something that would be included in this too as well, is having a server space for that testing to push the business along and say, hey, look, we can guarantee with 99.8% guarantee that this will help solve your problem or so on and so forth. I feel like it's just a stronger value added proposition I can give to them by being able to test on my own server and not have to worry about legalities and so on and so forth. Is that something that would go along with what this grant stands for?
That's a good question. So it's paying for the server itself, but
right.
Nora, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would still probably count as R&D.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. Because it's like, R&D test, testing your tech.
Because this is one of those things, and I'm sure you guys probably know as well, if you can't guarantee that integrity, that is your business. That is the business plan. You know what I mean? To make sure that you can safeguard the framework of the cyberspace. So, I mean, you can of course do it. You can say with a certain, a certain discernment. Hey, I can guarantee this and that. But when you actually test that on another server without having to penetrate someone else's server or whatever to make sure that what you're doing is compatible, then it kind of, I don't know, it just helps to have that own server. So if I can't do it, then I'll find another way. But I'm definitely interested in this grant, and I do appreciate you guys' time.
No, I definitely hear you. I do think that would fall under R&D, right? Because tech validation. So I don't know that this would be the right one for you, but we can definitely follow up, see if there are any other grants that we're aware of that might be able to connect you with.
Like certifications, especially like I'm sure you guys are familiar with the CMMC 2.0 certification that all business entities have to get to do business with the federal government. That's what they're doing to protect their cyberspace environment. So that certification is going to be a hefty price on a lot of SBEs, small business entities. So that would be definitely something that I'm sure that this grant would be on board with. Am I mistaken, or is that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like Michael said earlier.
Okay.
Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, so no worries. So certifications are covered.
Awesome.
And hopefully if we can't help which, it seems like it would be R&D in that server. Hopefully, if there's other fees that you have, the grant could help offset those fees so that, you have maybe the money somewhere else you can find to pay for that server.
Right. That's exactly why I said that. Well, perfect. Thank you. That'll definitely help. If I can offset paying $10,000 for that certification and making sure everything is up to par, then I can use that for that server. So I do appreciate that clarification. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, of course.
All
and
right.
just to quickly clarify, the minimum amount for the grant is 25,000. So you would have to, not just the certification, but if you have other things, business development related to include, it would have to be at least 25,000 that you're asking for.
At least. Okay. And it goes up to how much? Do you know?
25 to 50,000.
25 to 50. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Well, in cybersecurity, you can definitely touch that number very quickly.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you. God bless.
Of course. Thanks for stopping by.
Take care.
Looks like we have another question.
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, so I'm the same person who asked about the CRS tax ID that we don't have one yet because we are a pretty new company. So my question was, is having CRS tax ID is mandatory for the application to go through, or is it only required when we are considered for the potential award?
Sorry, say that one more time. So
we don't have the CRS tax ID yet. So my question is it mandatory to have that ID when at the time of application, or we need to have that ID only when we are considered for the award?
It's required for the application. It's part of our, we have to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and part of that is ensuring that a company receiving the funds is in good standing with the government. I understand you're not going to be in bad standing because you don't have one yet, and so I appreciate that that's a different situation. But it is just part of our checklist, right? We have to know that you are registered to do business in the state and able to pay taxes with the state, and part of that includes your CRS tax ID.
Okay, thank you. I already filed my tax return, but for some reason I don't have the CRS yet. It was required when filing the tax return, so yeah, I never really got to it.
Okay. Yeah, I would never myself purport to be a tax expert. Which is why I work at EDD and not tax and rev. But if you follow up with Michael, we can check with tax and rev to get that question better answered for you about the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, if unfortunately it doesn't come through on time, always feel free to reach out and we can maybe set up a meeting to see if there's other resources that would be good for you to use or take advantage of, or we will be running the grant again next year, likely. So there's always next year. So there's other funding out there and other options out there if it doesn't work out for this right now.
I appreciate that. And I just emailed you with the same question. So once you reply, we can have that conversation.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See, there's still a couple people. Any more questions?
I'm just listening to the questions. Wesley, do you have any more questions?
So, to launch a crowdfunding campaign, would that be eligible?
Can you give a little more details on exactly what you would be maybe spending the funding on?
Okay, because to put together a grant crowdfunding proposal, that's generally fairly expensive endeavor.
Nora, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I guess
I don't know if I ever worked with crowdfunding stuff.
A little unfamiliar with what the expenses to go into that really entail. That would be a new one for us, I think. So I would be a little hesitant. What kind of expenses would be going into that?
Well, I can bring that back in an email.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
But paying a consultant to help you prepare for it, that's not ideal.
I
Like
mean,
LinkedIn,
that's
like
a new one
marketing
for us, so
LinkedIn.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to, you know what, I'm gonna just to be, I think I would have to ask my colleagues probably about that. I just want to check. I don't want to speak out of turn.
Yeah.
I think that's a new one. I haven't quite seen that one before.
Cool.
Yeah, so if you just want to send us a little more information on that, then we'll get that answered for you.
Wesley, send me a note because I've got 3 other companies getting ready to crowdfund right now.
Okay,
Thanks
thank
for
you, Sandy.
sitting in, Sandy. You've been quite helpful in the chat and otherwise.
Oh, Sandy's an angel resource.
She absolutely is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking those questions, Michael, that were on behalf of Grovera, and that was Asher. So she'll get back to you directly.
Gotcha. Great. Thanks for the clarification. Okay. Cool.
So that would be kind of the same question along the line with writing a SBIR proposal.
So using the funds, like if you were to hire someone to write an SBIR proposal for you, is that kind of
right?
You know,
or do the customer discovery, like some of that is done externally, you know.
I mean, yeah, customer discovery is absolutely eligible. I think that's on the list, right? I think we want there to be a business development outcome of this grant when the funding is used, right? So if that is more variable, you know, with an SBIR grant, that's what gives me a little pause. Right. I think the focus would need to be on something that has a business development outcome from the use of these funds.
So again, just send us some more information on it, and Nora and I will check with some higher ups that can maybe have experience with that.
So I'm having a boot camp now that's helping people prep for LinkedIn support when you're going to crowdfund. And it's a LinkedIn kind of like a 6-week or whatever. It's like a 3-month boot camp kind of thing. And that's the sort of thing that maybe people would spend money on to have outcomes of actual sales from online or pre-sales. Those are like the things that come out of it kind of thing. But you have to pay that person.
Gotcha. I mean,
to teach you.
Right. I think that would kind of fall under, again, we haven't had anybody do that before, so we'd have to think to make sure. But I first impression kind of think that might fall under the same thing as a certification. You know, it's not, you know, a certification at the end, but a kind of training that gives you some validation going forward. But you have to think on that a little.
Yeah, and I would just say, you know, when thinking about what evaluators are going to be looking for, right? They want to see applications that have a compelling argument that they're going to use the funds to have a positive result for the company and also for the state. So I would just keep that in mind when you're making your compelling application.
All right, I'm going to go. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thanks so much, Sandy.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, guys. What you can use to get ahead is always every little arena. So this will really help. Thank you, guys.
Of course. Thanks for joining today. All right, so we are at about 1:56. I think that is a good place. Stop sharing to call it.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out through my email. and we'll get everything going for your grant application. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nora.